My family's surprising reactions when I exposed their dark secrets. The camera light turned red. I opened the envelope and read dates. I'm Alex, a public school teacher who grades citations for a living and believes receipts are safer than opinions. I didn't come to torch a memorial. I came because my family turned grief into a script and assigned me the role of quiet donor. There's no will, they said. Debts ate everything, they said. Stop asking, they said. Grandma taught me to label claims before I learned to drive, with masking tape and a fat black marker, long before hashtags and comment wars made truth feel optional. I had 2 minutes on a live stream to say 2 things and still honor the woman who wrote dates on freezer soup lids. The envelope in my hands held boring power, a probate index printout, will and trust pages, recorder bookend page, a notary's journal line, and escrow wire timestamps that walked like clock hands toward a conclusion no one wanted filmed. Lila sat in the 3rd row, steady as a metronome. Mom, Irene, wore a smile pinned at the edges, the kind that begs the room to play along. My brother Nathan hovered by the soundboard pretending to check levels, eyes cutting between the mic and me like a man measuring blast radius. I thought of my 8th graders and the phrase I make them right above every claim. Source, date, page. I thought of Grandma's biscuit tin where she kept baptism photos and appliance warranties, now vanished into the fog of nothing was left. I thought of the Fundraiser account that emptied faster than casseroles cooled. And I remembered the first rule of triage. Calm is a skill, not a mood. 2 facts, I whispered, testing the hinge of my voice. We can grieve and still correct the record. A youth volunteer raised the mic and whispered back, "You got this," like a benediction from a future I want to deserve. The red tally light didn't blink, it stared. I slid a thumb under the flap and felt the county seal bite my skin. I loved her enough to stop lying for her, and I loved Grandma enough to read the dates out loud. I stepped onto the taped X and let the hush seat itself. The first page in my hand was the will Grandma filed months before we cried. I grew up in a house where stories wore makeup and numbers wore coats. When the cat vanished, he had found a farm. When a check was late, the mail lost it. When a promise wasn't kept, timing wasn't right. We called it smoothing, as if truth were a wrinkle and not the fabric. Grandma didn't smooth. She kept a ledger and taught me to date anything that hoped to be believed. Irene hated that ledger. She preferred sentiment, lavender sachets, framed prayers, and 1,000 ways to say don't ask for proof. After Grandma died, the family group chat turned into a script room. "Nothing's left," Irene typed. "Hospitals took it all," Nathan added, thumbs quick. "We need to honor her, not nitpick." When I asked for copies, bills, statements, anything, Irene replied with a voice note about trust that sounded like a lullaby with teeth. At dinner, they blessed food and shamed the question in the same breath. "Alex, sweetheart," my mother said, "people will talk if you keep digging." "Let them talk to the clerk," I said, and my fork trembled. I kept remembering how Grandma labeled the freezer. Chili, 10/12, soup, 2/8. The small discipline of naming the what and when saved us from rancid leftovers and petty fights. It felt holy to me. In my classroom, I turned that habit into a lesson. Sight, where your claim is just a costume. Still, family is gravity. Their pull tightened my throat. I wanted peace you can hold without clenching your jaw. Peace without paperwork is stage fog. Lila came over with tea and a laptop. "We'll start boring," she said. "Probate index, recorder search. If we see nothing, we'll accept nothing." Her calm made space around fear. The probate screen blinked awake. 1 entry. Last will and testament, filed. I stared at the timestamp like it had spoken my name. Irene had insisted for a week there was no will. "People forget," she would say. Grandma hadn't forgotten. She had filed the thing that would outlive spin. We printed the index right there. Lila smiled sadly and squeezed my hand. "White lies hate clerks," she said. "Clerks don't clap." We copied the case number and circled it twice in red. Then we clicked to see if any deeds had moved before grief stopped. The recorder's site is a librarian with no patience for charm. We typed Grandma's name, the parcel number Lila pulled from an old tax bill, and filtered for deeds. There it was, Quitclaim deed, Grantee Raven Oak Holdings, LLC, recorded 3 days before the memorial and timestamped hours before the fundraiser link went live. I wrote the book in page and block letters so my future self couldn't pretend she hadn't seen it. Raven Oak, Lila said, eyebrows lifting. Sounds like a boutique candle that steals houses. I laughed because my ribcage needed the room. The grantor line listed Irene as POA for our grandmother. Power of attorney ends at death. Every beginner's guide says it out loud. If the signature was before, recording after still stank of hurry. We clicked the notary. Notaries keep journals like timekeepers at a race. Entry: Irene Maris, POA for Grace Maris, Quitclaim, known signer. Emergency timing per signer. Date 2 days before the final hospital admission. Known signer can be legal. It also tells a story about shortcuts. I rubbed my thumb across the screen as if friction could move ink. Meanwhile, the estate had begun shedding memories with surgical speed. The estate sales site posted Grandma's sewing table and the lemon-patterned dishes she used every Easter. A neighbor forwarded a flyer showing pre-sale walkthroughs by appointment the week we were arguing about hymns. I found Aunt Rose's old brooch in a selfie from Irene's friend, the caption chirping, "Vintage for the win." When I messaged her, she replied with a heart and the word gifted. Gifted is one letter away from shifted. I drove to the house and stood in the empty living room listening to the hum a home makes when furniture leaves. The air conditioner sounded like someone trying not to cry. On the counter, a folder labeled Fundraiser log sat open to neat columns that added up to zeros. Withdrawals, not deposits. I took photos, then put the folder where I found it, because I wanted the scene to be what it was when anyone else looked. Lila texted, "Don't chase motives. Chase dates." She was right. Motive can dress itself. Dates show up naked. I repeated book and page until the numbers stopped shaking. Dinner at Nathan's was spaghetti, garlic bread, and a collection plate without a plate. They framed it as sharing the load. It felt like a telethon with only my number on screen. Hospitals are ruthless, Irene said, aligning silverware like chess pieces. We covered as much as we could, but there's a gap. Nathan slid a paper across the table showing round numbers with no payee names, no account numbers, no dates. 2,000 from you by Friday closes it, he said. Then we can breathe. I'll bring a check when I see an invoice, I said. Silence clinked louder than the forks. Alex, Irene whispered, voice velvet over gravel. Do you want people to talk? They already are, I said. Let them talk to the clerk. Nathan smiled the way you do at a slow student. You're overthinking this, he said. Grandma didn't want drama. She wanted labels, I said. She labeled everything. The word everything landed with a thud. Ruth, the neighbor, cleared her throat. She'd brought a salad and the uncomfortable truth. Your realtor showed me the place, she said gently. Weeks ago. Before this. She waved at the casserole glow of grief. Nathan's mouth smiled while his eyes closed a door. We were exploring options, he said. Preliminary conversations. Ruth looked at the paper in his hand. Says here Raven Oak Holdings already signed, she said. They had a lockbox code. Irene squeezed her napkin until it forgot it was cloth. I carried plates to the sink so my hands would have something to do besides shake. On the fridge, a magnet held a quote about blessed are the peacemakers. I wanted that blessing. I also wanted an accounting. Sometimes those wants share a room. Tonight they stared at each other from opposite corners. Nathan touched my shoulder on the way to the door. Don't make this ugly, he murmured. Ugly is a choice. So is quiet. In the driveway, Irene caught my sleeve and said, If you love me, stop. I chose a different lesson, even if love called it betrayal. Exile in the age of group chats is a quiet, blinking thing. The family thread went from casserole emojis to a wall of silence, then to a new thread without me that I was never meant to see. A cousin accidentally forwarded a screenshot. I read the caption, Traitor, once, and then filed it under Weather, the folder where I keep storms I won't stand under. I muted everything that hummed shame. I turned on alerts for only one sound, the county clerk's email. Lila brought over tea and a checklist. We go boring, she said. Recorder, probate, escrow, notary. Fundraiser statements if the platform will cough them up. No rage posts, no subtweets, no midnight speeches. I nodded because my bones already knew the craving to argue is a trap a camera loves. We searched the fundraiser dashboard and found withdrawals labeled administrative. No provider names. No account numbers. A pattern of cash outs that looked like someone solving a personal problem with public sympathy. Screenshots, Lila said. Metadata. Click. Save. Label. I pulled mail from Grandma's box, a credit offer addressed to current resident, the most accurate lie I've seen printed. At the storage unit office, a clerk printed the keypad log. Multiple entries the day hospice admitted Grandma. An added user last month, Nathan. The clerk looked at the counter. I just print these, she said. Printing is good, I said. Printing means something happened. That night, I laid everything on my kitchen table the way we lay supplies during drills. I labeled envelopes like Grandma labeled jam. Will, deeds, escrow, journal, fundraiser, storage. My breath slowed to match the click of the stapler. I wrote a sentence on a sticky note. I will not argue. I will present. I stuck it inside the flap of the envelope like a seatbelt. My phone buzzed. Irene had sent a photo of us at the beach with a caption about how families should forgive. I stared until the pixels smoothed into something kinder than the words. Then I put the phone face down. I confirmed what my voice would do with 2 minutes. The county clerk's office smells like toner and resolve. We gave the case number and our IDs to a woman whose badge said Marla and whose eyes said she had seen every story twice. She printed certified copies like a magician revealing handkerchiefs, will, trust, and the docket note that Grandma had named equal shares and a hold on the house until debts were verified with receipts. Then Marla slid over the quitclaim packet with the notary's acknowledgement. The signature block looked like Irene's careful cursive. The date did not look like our family story. At Boone Notary, the journal told the same tale with less poetry. Line 482. Irene Maris, POA for Grace Maris, quitclaim deed, known signer, date 2 days before the final hospital admission. It included a note. Emergency timing per signer. Power of attorney ends at death. Recording days afterward doesn't revive it. Legal is not always moral, but timestamps are not sentimental. Lila photographed the journal with permission, then emailed herself the images because we've learned to treat phones like unreliable narrators. We checked the LLC filing for Raven Oak. Registered agent, a service downtown. Organizer, in Maris. The letters didn't blink. They didn't need to. They sat there and named the hands moving the chess pieces. I drove the long way home past Grandma's porch and said each date out loud like a rosary for clarity. Irene called. I let it go to voicemail and listened on speaker so the words couldn't climb inside me. Please don't make a scene, she said. We can fix it quietly. Quietly is the word that keeps secrets fed. I pressed my palm to the will copy until the paper warmed. Decision time, Lila said that night, laying 3 envelopes on my table. Private sit-down, lawyer letter, or a measured public correction with documents in a neutral room. I looked at the live stream schedule the pastor had emailed and felt my heartbeat match the countdown clock. I don't like stages. I like classrooms and clerk windows and the way printers make evidence honest. But sometimes a camera is the only room people won't pretend they didn't hear. Breadcrumbs don't sparkle. They smudge your fingers with ink and dust. We printed a grantor/grantee index for the parcel, tracing every recording like a finger following a hymn. 10 years of quiet, then a flurry, refinance, trust restatement, and the sudden quitclaim to Raven Oak. The title office produced an escrow summary with line items that did not know how to spell hospital, service fees, courier, recording, and one clean wire labeled owner proceeds to the LLC at 9:12 a.m. on Memorial morning. I circled the time until the paper thinned. We texted the old listing agent from a number she didn't have. When did walkthroughs start at 54 Orchard? Lila wrote. Pre-market previews week before service, she replied. She attached a blurry photo of a family access addendum. Within, Maris scribbled where owner belonged. Lila pulled image metadata like a magician palming a coin. Dates don't lie when pixels tell them to talk. At the post office, we requested mail forwarding records. The form showed a change to Raven Oak's mailbox the same week Irene posted a Bible verse about integrity. In the storage unit's log, Nathan appeared like a chorus line on the worst possible day, the one hospice called us at dawn. The clerk's eyes were kind and tired. People get overwhelmed, she said. Overwhelmed and organized, I said, and she nodded without smiling. We requested Fundraiser exports. The platform sent a CSV with columns that tracked hope turning into withdrawals tagged admin and supplies and MISC. No payees. No account numbers. The notes field contained a single emoji in places where receipts should live. I wanted to sleep for a month. Instead, I labeled the file and added it to the stack. That night, I read the timeline aloud to my ceiling like prayer. Will filed, trust terms, quitclaim, journal date, wire, walkthroughs, forwarding, storage, withdrawals. When I reached the part about the wire, my voice didn't waver. The facts arranged themselves into a road I could walk. It felt like a spine growing where excuses had lived. The twist wasn't cinematic. It was a photocopier's mistake. In the probate file sat a consent to transfer, with my name in a font that was supposed to be handwriting. The loop on my Y looked familiar because it wasn't mine. It was lifted from last year's birthday card to Irene. Confetti ghosted in the background like a watermark someone forgot to bleach. Lila printed the consent and held it next to the card. The loop married perfectly. Inkjet artifacts, she murmured. Lifted signature. Grandma had named me alternate trustee if the primary grew conflicted. I could hear her hum as she folded laundry, the way she hummed when a plan made moral sense. Ruiz, the attorney Lila trusted, examined high-res photos and sent 3 sentences. Consent invalid if forged. POA dies at death. Deed chain can be corrected. Funds can be recalled. His calm bled into mine like warm tea. Don't speculate motive, he added. Present mechanics and dates. I wrote that on a sticky and stuck it to my mirror where despair liked to practice speeches. Stakes showed up like bills in the mail. If the house stayed in a shell, I could lose housing access and credit leverage we'd planned for grad school. If the fundraiser audit stuck to miscellaneous, taxes and penalties could circle back to whoever the platform could catch. Sometimes the person who asked the right question first. If I waited, the story would harden. If I acted, the family would fracture on camera. I picked up the envelope and felt how heavy paper gets when it's asked to carry a spine. I typed my 2 sentences for the live stream in a font my students can read from any seat. Thank you for honoring her. There are 2 facts that affect this fundraiser story. Fact 1. The will and trust on file state equal shares and hold the house until debts are verified with receipts. Fact 2. A quitclaim recorded to Raven Oak, backed by a consent that is not my signature, and a wire to the LLC on Memorial Morning. Then I added the line Ruiz gave me. I invite anyone to verify these at the clerk's office. Plans aren't courage. They're containers that make courage stand still. Lila and I cleared my table and packed the story into boring, unbreakable pieces. Packet A, certified will/trust pages, probate index with case number circled, a 1-paragraph explainer in 16-point type about equal shares, and hold until receipts. Packet B, quitclaim certified copy with book/page, Boone's Notary journal line enlarged, and a 1-page glossary. Recorded equals filed in county records. POA equals power ends at death. Consent equals assigned yes, not a photocopied maybe. Packet C, escrow summary with the wire timestamp highlighted in neon and the platform's fundraiser CSV printed with column headers visible. For each we taped a QR code to the county lookup and printed the raw URL, because someone would claim codes are hacker tricks. We pre-labeled envelopes for pastor, sound booth, and moderator. Ruiz pushed his glasses up and tested me like a witness. Read only the 2 facts. Don't read adjectives. Invite verification. Then step back. He handed me a sentence like a handrail. I invite anyone to verify these dates at the county clerk. We rehearsed interruptions on purpose. Lila heckled me softly from across the room with the exact lines family would use. Ungrateful, dramatic, cold, unchristian, teacher who should know better. When I stumbled, she smiled and circled dates on the script. You're not here to be liked, she said. You're here to be clear. I wrote 2 reminders inside the envelope flap. I will not argue, and I will not raise my voice. I packed duplicates of every page on a USB with static images labeled will, deed, journal, wires so the booth could cut to receipts if mouths got loud. Aunt Rosa texted a photo of Grandma's recipe card box and 3 words. I'm in front. That felt like someone had added a beam under the floor. When the church secretary confirmed a 2-minute thank you slot, I walked the hallway with my stopwatch, practicing the turn of each page and the exhale after each date. I taped a sticky over my heart that said boring wins because righteous fury can melt into noise when microphones get warm. I pictured my students' faces the day they learn a bibliography is a lifeline, not a punishment. Then I imagined Grandma's steady pen writing speak plainly on the inside of my skull. Tomorrow, the red light would blink and my envelope would open. The night before, Nathan asked to clear the air at a diner that smells like coffee and compromises. He slid into the booth already performing relief. "We don't have to do this," he began, palms up. "I can unwind some things. Put the house back in a different vehicle. Keep Mom from panicking. No cameras, no theatrics." He said theatrics like a slur. I stirred my tea until the spoon stopped ringing. "Send me, in writing, a plan to return title to the trust and a wire to repay the proceeds," I said. "Copy probate. Copy escrow. Dates. Signatures." His smile cracked like thin ice. "You're a teacher, Alex. You crave control. Real life is messy, eh?" "Real life has book/page," I said. "Real life has wire times." He leaned closer. "Do you want the church people to see you burn your family?" The waitress refilled our water and pretended not to hear the part of the conversation that always makes strangers tired. I checked my phone. Lila had texted a dot and a dash. The more she taught me for steady. Ruiz sent one more line. "Say the invitation sentence even if they interrupt." Irene arrived breathless, clutching a scarf like a life preserver. "If you love me, don't do this," she said, eyes bright with the oxygen of attention. "Your grandmother hated scenes. She loved labels," I said softly. "She labeled grief so we wouldn't eat it by mistake." Irene's voice dropped to a whisper honed over decades of fundraising and forgiveness. "People will think you're cruel. People can verify dates," I answered, and surprised us both by not crying. Nathan tried a new angle. "Your principal won't like this," he murmured. "Parents will complain. The board will call." He didn't know my principal keeps a framed copy of our records policy and a photo of her grandmother's deed on her desk. He didn't know I had already told her the facts and nothing else. "I am not a rumor," I said. "I'm a record." The check came. He reached for it with theatrical chivalry. I let him have the performance. Outside, under the diner's humming sign, he stepped too close and lowered his voice like a movie villain who still believes he's the hero. He whispered, "Remember who changed your diapers," and reached for my phone. Sunday morning, the church buzzed with lilies, coffee, and cords. The livestream volunteers taped small X marks on the stage and ran lower third captions that read, "In loving memory of Elaine Maris." I found the pastor by the sound booth and placed a sealed packet in his hands. "If the room gets loud," I said, "this includes the URLs and the glossary." He nodded with the calm of a man who has married, buried, and buffered 1,000 families. Lila handed a USB to the tech with images pre-named for quick switching. The kid gave us a thumbs up like a pilot cleared for takeoff. Aunt Rosa sat in the front row with a program folded like a fan and an expression that said she was done playing nice with shadows. Irene floated from cluster to cluster performing ease, her smile safety pinned into place. Nathan stationed himself at the soundboard, a general guarding buttons. The comment feed on the projector filled with casseroles, hearts, and she taught me to hem curtains. I watched the number tick up as people tuned in. The red dot on the lens looked like an eye that didn't blink. We placed QR codes near the doors with plain URLs beneath them, so anyone who distrusted squares could type letters. Lila pinned a small mic to my collar and tested levels. "Count to 5, she said. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I said, and imagined counting receipts into the room. Ruiz faded into an aisle seat where he could see the booth and the pulpit in one glance, his hands folded like parentheses around a sentence that would be said either way. The slideshow ran. Children, pies, sunlight on a porch, handwriting that made me ache. The pastor smiled at me as the last photo dissolved. "Alex would like to say a brief thank you," he announced, and the ushers turned down the house music. The red light clicked on and stayed on. The space between my ribs found a shape I could stand inside. Lila's eyes met mine and didn't flinch. The usher pointed to the taped X as the red tally awoke. "Thank you for honoring my grandmother," I began, hearing my voice behave. "I teach kids to check sources, so I'm going to do that here." A small ripple of nervous laughter gave the truth a seat. "2 facts that affect the fundraiser story," I said, holding up packet A. "First, the will and trust on file leave equal shares to Irene, Nathan, and me, and hold the house until documented debts are verified with receipts. I read the probate case number. The caption operator typed filed will. Aunt Rosa said, hum, into the quiet like a choir of one. Second, I said, lifting packet B. 3 days before this memorial, a quitclaim deed recorded transferring the house to Raven Oak Holdings, LLC. The supporting consent is not my signature. I read book/page and the notary journal date. I held up the escrow summary showing the owner proceeds wired to the LLC the morning of the service. I invite anyone to verify these dates at the county clerk, I said, placing duplicates on the lectern and at the booth. Irene rose, hand fluttering like she could wave the camera off. She's grieving strangely, she said, voice polished to a shine. This is a misunderstanding. We will resolve privately. Her eyes begged the room to nod. Aunt Rosa stood, voice steady as gravel. Grace filed that will on purpose, she said. I drove her. Don't you dare bury her intentions with flowers. The room inhaled. The booth switched to an overlay of book/page. The comments exploded into prayer hands and question marks. A cousin I'd always assumed would side with Irene stood shaking, then spoke into a dead mic the booth hurried to catch. I saw the fundraiser withdrawals, she said. I thought it was for expenses. I should have asked. Her face shook like paper catching wind. Irene hissed, sit down. Aunt Rosa didn't. Someone near the back whispered, what's Raven Oak? And Lila posted the LLC registration on the church's Facebook comment thread. Then Nathan's wife gripped the mic and said, I did it. I moved the fundraiser money, she said, voice thin as thread but unbreaking. Nathan told me we'd pay it back after closing. He said people would understand. He said receipts would create confusion. I'm sorry. The room went from murmur to hum to hush. Irene reached for her like a director trying to yank an actor off stage. Nathan took a step toward the booth. Ruiz took a step toward Nathan. The pastor's hand hovered over the mute button like a prayer that knows it still needs a plan. I was scared. Nathan's wife continued, reading from her phone. Mortgage. Car. We were behind. He said Grandma wanted him to handle logistics and that the will was old. Lila posted the probate filing date in the comments with a simple, this is the date. Irene pivoted on camera with the grace of a fundraiser queen, eyes damp, voice low. We all make mistakes in grief, she said, pointing her sorrow at me. But love forgives privately. Alex has chosen humiliation. The word humiliation landed like a dare. Aunt Rosa said, no, Alex has chosen daylight. And the pastor, to his everlasting credit, said, the documents are here for anyone to verify after we conclude. He asked for a hymn, and the pianist found one that could hold a room together while it examined itself. While people sang, my phone buzzed with 3 emails. The title company opening an internal review, the recorder flagging the deed for possible corrective action, and the fundraiser platform responding to our audit request with a promise to assist law enforcement as needed. I put my phone face down and breathed like my body knew how without me. Fallout began as quietly as a printer warming up. A cousin texted, I'm with you. Another wrote, you are dead to me. My principal emailed a single line. You were factual and brief. Irene posted a black square with the caption, betrayed by my own, and I drafted 12 replies I never sent. Ruiz whispered, we are not litigating here. We are preserving the scene, and took photos of the overlays on the screen with the book/page visible for any future forgetfulness. Escrow's reply pinged my phone. Funds recall initiated, stand by. Healing turned out to be settings, not speeches. I froze my credit, added transaction alerts to every account, moved originals to a safe deposit box, and left copies with Lila in an envelope labeled, if I lose my phone. Ruiz drafted a 1-page boundary agreement for Irene and Nathan. Any help requests must be in writing with amounts, due dates, and payees. No cash. No verbal loans. No access to my devices. Irene cried, agreed, backslid, then texted me a real bill for the first time in my life. We paid it online together with receipts. She sent a heart. I didn't reply. Some bridges count your steps. The recorder added a corrective action note. The title company proposed a rescission that would drop the house back into the trust while probate sorted distributions under Grandma's rules. Nathan's lawyer sent a letter heavy with adjectives and light on dates. Ruiz replied with dates and a sentence that tasted like steel. Our client invites verification at the clerk's office. The Fundraiser platform froze the account. A volunteer treasurer cried in my arms and asked if she was going to jail. You saved every receipt, I said. That's what saves you now. Aunt Rosa brought me lemon bars and a photograph of Grandma labeling jam jars. Alignment, she said, tapping the photo. That's all you did. At school, a student asked, why do grown-ups lie? Because they're scared, I answered, and because it sometimes works. He nodded like someone accepting weather. I taped 3 rules inside a cabinet. No arguing online. Help only in writing. Keep copies. Then I added a 4th. Allow joy on purpose. On a Tuesday evening, I walked past Grandma's porch. The key the recorder had returned felt familiar again instead of stolen. I stood in the blue hush and said out loud, I kept your labels, even when it cost applause. A porch light clicked on down the block, like a small answer I could live with. Tomorrow we'd sign the rescission and hand the key back properly. I used to think dignity meant swallowing hurt, so everyone else could eat peace. Now I think dignity is alignment. Your insides and outsides match. Your grief and your records share a name. If you're where I stood, start with one boring step. Go to the recorder and search the parcel or last name. Write down book and page like it's a lighthouse. Ask the probate clerk whether a will exists. Note the case number or the blank if it doesn't. Request certified copies. Pull escrow summaries and a disbursement breakdown. Highlight wire timestamps. Photograph notary journal lines. Request the page. Print URLs, not just QR codes. Mail yourself a timeline by certified mail so the postmark becomes part of your spine. When family says you're making it ugly, remember quiet can be complicity and calm can be a skill. Speak in verbs and dates. Filed, recorded, wired, verified. Hand a packet to a neutral person. Invite verification in public, words you can live with in private. Don't speculate motive, present mechanics. You can love people and refuse their version. You can offer a path back that runs through receipts. If a camera must be the room where truth stops pretending it can't hear, put your facts in the camera's hands and step aside. One morning after the rescission, sunlight slid across the porch and found the door the way it used to. I held the key and thought of every label Grandma wrote, so we wouldn't waste food or love or time. I wrote one more label for her recipe box and slid it between lemon bars and peach jam. Home. OURS. AS written. I don't know who will find it years from now. I hope they read it and feel the floor hold. Start with one date, one document, one breath, and then keep going.